Hey everyone, it's Johnny Castles here from Prime Academy, and for today's example question, we're going to be going through taking the derivative of a trigonometric function. Just to start, what is a trigonometric function? So a trig function is anytime you have like sine, cos, or tan, and then inside you've got an expression containing x. So I can see here I've got my sine, and then I have my expression inside that contains x. So I have a trig function here, which means there's going to be a certain set of rules that we need to follow to take the derivative of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take the derivative of the expression inside the trig function, which in this case is that 7 to the x minus 3x to the 4. And I'm going to call that u, so I'm going to go u equals, and notice how I'm just writing what was inside the sine function. Now, when I look at what u is, I can see that I have an exponent containing variables. So this is actually an exponential function that we have inside our trig function. So to take the derivative of u, which is again the 7 to the x minus 3x to the 4, I'm going to have to use exponential differentiation. And if you need a sort of a lesson on that, there is a video on it. So I'm going to be going through it a little more quickly than I would otherwise. So the first thing is when we're taking the derivative of an exponential, you take the derivative of the exponent and bring it in front, and the exponent being this guy right here. And when I look at that, I can see that it's just a couple of monomials being subtracted, which means I'm going to use the power rule. So the derivative of x is 1. The derivative of 3x to the 4 is 12x to the 3. I'm going to close that. Your next step, when you're deriving an exponential expression, is you rewrite the original, so x to the 3x to the 4, and then your last step is writing the ln of the base. So right now, by taking the derivative of the expression inside the trig function, what we've done is we've completed the first step of trigonometric differentiation. So what's the second step? Well, what we have here, and when I say here, I mean on the right, it's a little bit of a flow chart. This tells us how we can actually take the derivative of sine or cos or negative sine or negative cos. It's actually kind of a really sort of helpful flow diagram, or flow chart, if you will. So if I start with sine and I want to take the derivative of it, the derivative of sine is cos. If I start with cos and I want to take the derivative of it, I end up with negative sine. If I start with negative sine and I want to take the derivative, I end up with negative cos. And if I start with negative cos and I want to take the derivative, I end up back at sine. So let's see how we can incorporate this into the question that we're working on. So the first thing is, or the first step, is taking the derivative of what's inside the trig function. We've done that. We can see that we have, and I should mark that actually as u prime. You can see that we have that right here. This flow chart, by the way, the one here on the right, I promise we're going to get to that. That's step 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my step 1, which is the derivative of the expression inside the trig function. Okay, so there's step 1 complete. Okay, and I'll write a little 1 underneath it. Step 2 is right now I'm looking at this sine, and what I have is when you have a sine, according to my flow chart, sine derives to cos. So I'm going to change this sine right here to a cos. So now I go times cos, and then I rewrite the original expression inside the bracket. So this 7 to the x minus 3x to the 4, I'm going to rewrite it. So 7 to the x minus 3x to the 4. And what we have is we now have our derivative of our trigonometric function. So you can see it's really only 2 steps. The first is you got to take the derivative of what's inside the function right here. And then the second is you need to take the derivative of the trig function itself, which in this case is sine. And those are the 2 steps that you need to master in order to successfully take the derivative of a trigonometric function.